She walked into the courtroom like a storm in Heelstall, sharp and unshakably confident. Alexandra Moore wasn't just a name trending on social media. She was a rising phenomenon in progressive politics. At just 34, she carried to Ivy League degrees, a record-breaking book tour, and a mouth that never blinked under pressure. She wasn't there to play nice, and certainly not to play fair. She was there with a mission: to take down Senator John Kennedy. To her, Kennedy wasn't just another conservative senator. He was the symbol of everything she believed was wrong with America. Gene ideas wrapped in Southern charm and stitched to the past like a faded flag, refusing to lower. The press loved the setup. They called it the old lion versus the lightning bolt. Kennedy, the Louisiana conservative with a voice like slow honey, and Moore, the progressive firebrand whose words crackled like sparks off a live wire. When Moore announced she would confront Kennedy at a nationally televised Senate hearing, the story sold itself. The cameras didn't just show up, they swarmed. Political pundits whispered this could be his undoing, his legacy dismantled, his seat in jeopardy, his reputation on the verge of collapse. Inside the hearing room, the air was thick with anticipation. Kennedy sat still, his posture almost too relaxed, hands folded on the oak desk before him. On his lapel was a small, silver cross, barely noticeable, unless you were looking. Some critics had already called it inappropriate, even provocative, to wear religious symbols during government proceedings. But Kennedy never addressed those comments. He wore it not to provoke, but for something else, something personal. The crowd hushed as Alexandra Moore stood, hair neat, blazer sharp, eyes locked forward. "Mr. Chairman," she began, voice clear and firm, "I'd like to ask how someone who so openly wears his religion on his chest can be trusted to judge matters with impartiality." Gasps, cameras zoomed in. Reporters scribbled. Moore continued without missing a beat. "Doesn't the Constitution demand separation of church and state, or are we interpreting that selectively now?" Some clapped. Others shifted nervously in their seats. Senator Kennedy didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't interrupt. He simply looked up slowly and met her gaze. What came next wasn't anger, wasn't defensiveness. It was a smile, a slow, deliberate, deeply human smile. "Ms. Moore," he said, voice steady like Riverstone, "you've got every right to ask me that. In fact, I admire your boldness. But let me tell you a little story." And just like that, the storm she brought into the room began to pause. The room grew still. You could hear the soft whir of the cameras, a cough in the back row. Even Moore leaned forward just slightly. "When I was a young man," Kennedy began, "I clerked for a judge in New Orleans. Real tough man. Sharp mind. Flende, he said to me, 'Son, the Constitution doesn't ask you to leave your heart at the door, just your bias.' He let that hang in the air. I wear this cross," he continued, gently touching it, "not because I expect others to follow my faith. I wear it to remind me of humility, of justice, of grace. Even for people who disagree with me." Moore's expression shifted slightly, almost imperceptibly. Kennedy leaned forward now, elbows on the desk, voice still soft. "And I'll tell you this: if ever this cross made me forget that my job is to serve every citizen, not just those who pray like me, I'd take it off in a heartbeat." A silence heavier than noise filled the room. Then, with the ease of a man who's seen too much to rush anything, Kennedy turned the question around. "But let me ask you something, Ms. Moore. Do you believe someone who doesn't share your ideology can still serve with integrity, still love their country, still be worthy of public trust?" Moore hesitated. She hadn't expected this. Not the question, and certainly not the tone. Theatrics, no evasion, no venom, just truth, quiet, direct. For the first time, she didn't have a ready answer. The hearing moved on, but the energy in the room had changed. Kennedy answered each question, some pointed, some borderline hostile, with the patience of a man not performing, but simply explaining. He cited case law from memory, recalled precedents most clerks would have Googled, quoted civil rights rulings, and bipartisan amendments. But what struck people most was not what he said, it was how he said it. Measured.com. Even warm, he wasn't defending himself. He was sharing, clarifying, teaching. More so often, the predator in political arenas was now pausing, listening, even nodding. At times, what began as a calculated takedown was turning into something entirely different, something she hadn't planned for. Respect. In the days that followed, the media ran wild. Kennedy shocks critics with legal mastery. Progressive star faces unexpected challenge in Senate hearing. Bipartisan civility. Kennedy and Moore trade words, not blows. Pundits replayed the hearing clips like highlight reels, not for scandal but for substance. And while Kennedy's approval among his base remained strong, something strange happened. Young progressives began sharing his quotes. Clips of his cross speech trended on TikTok. Even memes popped up, half funny, half admiring. But the most unexpected moment happened off camera. 2 weeks after the hearing, Alexandra Moore requested a meeting. Privately, no press, no advisors, just two people in one office. They sat across from each other this time, not as combatants, but as individuals. "I was wrong about you," she said softly. Kennedy raised an eyebrow, a slight smirk at the edge of his lips. "I thought you were just another relic," she added. "Out of touch. But you're not." Kennedy chuckled. "And I figured you were just chasing headlines." They both laughed, and for a moment, the walls of politics cracked just enough for humanity to peek through. Their conversation lasted 2 hours. They didn't agree on everything. In fact, most topics still drew sharp differences. But what emerged was a shared concern that transcended party lines. Veteran mental health. Both had constituents suffering in silence. Both had lost friends to the shadows that follow soldiers home. And both knew they could do something, so they did, together. The bill was announced 1 month later. Bipartisan initiative to expand mental health services for U.S. veterans. Co-authored by Senator John Kennedy and Congresswoman Alexandra Moore. Some called it political strategy. Others called it impossible. But when the vote came through, it passed with overwhelming support. Veterans groups applauded. Families wrote letters. News anchors stumbled through praise that felt unfamiliar but earned. In the months that followed, Kennedy and Moore didn't become best friends. They still debated fiercely on policy, still voted differently on the floor. But when asked about each other in interviews, their responses surprised everyone. "I still disagree with him on a lot," Alexandra said, "but I've never met anyone with a stronger sense of duty." Kennedy, for his part, kept it short. "She's a pain in the neck sometimes." He smiled, but her heart's in the right place. What started as a public feud ended in a rare truth that respect doesn't require agreement, and sometimes strength isn't about proving you're right. It's about showing you're willing to listen. The story went viral not just because of the clash, but because of the conclusion. In a time of constant division, these two reminded a nation that sometimes, the most radical thing you can do in politics is respect your opponent. Senator Kennedy kept his seat. Moore rose even higher in public admiration. But more importantly, they kept their humanity. And that day, as one journalist wrote, strength didn't shout, it just wore a cross. And told the truth.